Today, there it is. Today we're going to look at a weird story. It's a weird story in the Bible. I don't know how to respond to it and think about it. I was thinking about it all week, and it's just one of those stories you read in the Bible and you go, okay, well, I guess that happened. I mean, what's going on there? You know, what's the meaning of all the things that happened in the history of history? Why did this story make the Bible? And for years I would read it and it'd be one of those stories you just read over and say, okay, yeah, I know that happened. I know the facts, but I don't understand it. And when you take a minute to slow down and say, okay, why is that here? What's it trying to say? What I've discovered and what I think God has shown me and what it's just become like burning inside of me looking at this story is that this message is incredibly subtle but deeply profound and could not be more relevant for the world that we're living in today. Now, we're in this series called The Spirit of Cain, and in this series, we're talking a lot about origins, beginnings, foundations. We're trying to create a solid place for us to stand in a world that is shifting and shaking and moving around. Years ago, I remember I was in university, and one of the things I studied in undergraduate was philosophy. And so I was in a philosophy class. It was a class called The Philosophy of Science. And so it was interesting for a couple reasons. One, it was a mix. It was a graduate level class, and so it was the end of our undergraduate time. And half the group were four-year philosophy majors who had just been dreaming and thinking and talking about ideas for 4 years. And the other half were scientists. So it was chemists, engineers, biologists who had one lib-ed thing they had to get, and this was the thing, and they were just ready to graduate and get into the world. And the central question we were asking two central questions in this class. One was, what does it mean to know stuff? So what's a fact, what's science, all that kind of thing. And the second question is this, and this tormented the scientists. Is technology a good thing or a bad thing? Is the idea of progress and advancement, the idea of making more stuff, simply because we can do stuff, we should do stuff. And of course, all these scientists were about to go into the world, and they were going to create, and they were going to learn, and they were going to invent, and they were going to make things better. They were going to design stuff. And these philosophers sitting back there all cool, just filling their minds with doubt about the thing they've given their life to, whether or not it might be a moral evil to actually be doing these things. And we could just twist them in circles. It was terrible, wonderful fun. And so we did that. But that question of what should we do as followers of Christ in an age of progress, in an age of AI and skyscrapers and electric cars, how then should we live in this age? And it all comes back to this question of the Spirit of Cain. Now, one of the things we've been saying is that we've defined the Spirit of Cain. Do you remember? We're in the book of Genesis. We're talking about foundational things. It all starts with this question of God, this understanding that there is a God. And God does not tell us what he decided was good and right and proper. He is what is good and right and proper. So what is good is rooted in the nature and character of God. That's why we as Christians can say, yeah, we believe it's good. It's everything that's like God. So justice, truth, mercy, compassion, these are absolute truths of goodness that are rooted in the nature and character of God. That gives us a place to stand. And this God lovingly, intentionally created. He's a creator. He's a designer. He's a builder. He made mountains and nebulae. He's the most amazing creator, inventor, engineer who ever lived. So when we do those things, we are like him. When we advance, when we progress, when we create. In fact, at the crown of his created order, he said, the most amazing thing, the most impressive thing I'm going to create are humans. And I'm going to give them something I've not given to anything else, not the angels, not anything. I'm going to make them in my image. And so they will have free will, they will have intelligence, they will have capacity to live and act and be like me. They will be powerful, and the things that can come from them will be absolutely breathtaking. But of course, we know from Genesis, what stepped into the equation was this thing of sin. This idea that there was a righteous mark for us to hit, and we have missed the mark, and now we are wildly missing the mark. And because of that, there's this battle between good and evil in every human being. Well, since this evil came in the man and woman, the next generation were these two called Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel were brothers, and they were both offering sacrifices. And this thing of figuring out what you are going to sacrifice your life to, because you are going to sacrifice your life to something. You're going to offer your life to something whether you want it to or not. You may say, I'm not going to give myself to anything. Well, that's the altar you put your life on, nothing. The altar of nothing, okay? Really unsatisfying altar, by the way. Okay, so you're going to give yourself something. So Abel, the younger brother, was giving himself to the right things, offering acceptable sacrifices that were going to lead him to the goodness of God. Cain was offering bad sacrifices, and sacrifices that just were not correct, they were not inadequate. And rather, because we all have done that, rather than saying, okay, what am I doing wrong? What can I fix? What can I learn? Abel, what would you tell me? God, what would you show me? He developed an attitude we're calling the spirit of Cain. So let's take a look. The spirit of Cain makes unwise sacrifices that lead us away from the goodness of God. And so we sacrifice to our fame, we sacrifice to our reputation, we sacrifice to our pleasure, or whatever, and it leads us away from the goodness of God. And then our response is blaming others for the consequences of these actions. So our life become a mess, our relationships become a mess, it's all messed up, and then it's someone else's fault. And so Cain started saying, started resenting Abel, started blaming God. It was not a good thing. There's no record of it, but he probably blamed his parents. Adam and Eve, they ate the apple, all that kind of stuff. But blaming, and even if you have a point, blaming and resentment and entitlement don't lead you to a good place. Entitlement looks like, I shouldn't have to do sacrifices anyway. This is too hard. Shouldn't be like this. And when you embrace this spirit of Cain, okay, and blame others for the consequences of your actions, then you start seeking to eventually destroy that which is good. And that's what happens. He sees his brother Abel, and he sees Abel offering right sacrifices, getting good results, and at first he mocks him. The Bible says that when Abel saw this, his face became downcast, became very angry. And then he started resenting his brother, and then you start making fun of your brother, and then you start pushing, and then you start, degrading them and develop an attitude. Eventually it leads to the justification, because you've dehumanized them and you're thinking, to actually harming them, and he killed his brother. And this is the spirit of Cain. And this is the spirit we are drowning in. It's the warning God gave to Cain at the end. He says, sin is crouching at our door. It desires to have us. The spirit of Cain desires to have us. So the question is, how are we supposed to live? Well, here's what we want to discuss today. In the last story in this first part of Genesis, we want to discuss the fact that the spirit of Cain builds towers. It builds towers. It builds edifices to itself. It does project. It starts ideas. It founds movements. It moves around. It moves and shakes. It seeks to establish things. And at first, we're going to look at this and say, okay, that's great news. But the story we're going to look at is stunningly surprising, because of what God does when he sees the spirit of Cain when it starts to build. Now, let's take a look at the story about the Tower of Babel, okay? Let's talk about this. In chapter 11, verse 1, it said, now the whole earth had one language and the same words. Well, that sounds wonderful, doesn't it? We could all talk to each other. I mean, how many times have we just said, if we could just talk to each other, if we could just get each other to understand? Because, here's the deal. People are basically good, right? I mean, right? Kind of. We could just talk to each other. It would be good. Anybody remember Esperanto? And no one in the first service either. Golly. So it was a movement back like in the 80s that they were going to get rid of all human languages, and these people invented this language that no one spoke called Esperanto. It was a collection of all language, had perfect grammar, and everybody's going to learn this so we could just all talk to each other, because it's based on this understanding that people are fundamentally good. They could just talk to each other. Boy, we would really figure some things out. And this is what happens here. And they had that. Watch this, verse 2. And the people migrated from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they settled there. So what we're going to find about this plain is it's flat, it's buildable, they're all together. And what you're seeing here is opportunity. It's such a good thing. Watch this. And they said to one another, okay, start having this conversation with one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. He said, listen, we got resources here. We're going to build something strong, and we're going to do it well. I mean, this is motivational stuff. This is a compelling vision. We're going to build something. Who wants to build something? Who's with me? That's what's going on here, okay? And they had the bricks for stone and bit them for mortar. I don't know what bit them is, but apparently it's really good for mortar, and they had it. The point is that they had the best opportunity. They are on the same page. They were heading in the same direction. They were going to build something. They were going to make progress. They were going to build a tower. And it just seems like, wow, this is human advancement. Wonderful, wonderful things, technology. Then they said, come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. Look at this next part. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. Now there's at the heart of this two big questions, okay? The first big question is this, is when people are making advancement, will the advancement bring good or harm? Okay? And the second question, which is very at the heart of the first question, is, are people good or bad? Okay? Because here's the way we kind of think it would be. Is we kind of wish it was like, it was categorized, okay? In fact, let's just do a little exercise. Would all the bad people move to this side of the room? I'm sure there's some over here. Go ahead. No, okay. All the good people move over here, right? We wish it was that easy, right? Because that's what it is. But here's what the Bible actually teaches. The Bible teaches that human beings are amazing. They are fabulous. They are creative. When God made humanity, he said, I put my image in them. And that means that they can create. That means that they can build. That means they can write symphonies. That means that they can invent medicines. That means that they can overcome problems. They can irrigate deserts. They can make things grow. They can solve equations. They can write literature. Human beings are amazing. And listen, that's true for all humans. And that's inside of everyone, the original glory of God as human beings. That's why the most despicable moral person can write a beautiful symphony. That's why the person who is terrible to their family can invent penicillin. Okay, that's why people, I'm sorry for the guy who invented penicillin, I don't know if he's terrible to his family or not, but you know what I mean, right? So it was Joseph Salk, and I don't really know what kind of guy, he was an atheist. Anyway, the point is, this is the thing. That goodness is even in broken people. At the same time, all of us are capable of selfishness, self-obsession, jealousy, greed, lust. We are willing to use people and misrepresent and bear false witness. We have broken all 10 of the 10 commandments on the same day. We are all capable of that. Even the most committed saint who really does love Jesus is capable of that kind of darkness. And so here's the deal. It's not as easy as saying, listen, it's bad people and good people. Because all of it is in all of it. Now here's a quote from a guy by the name of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He is one of the voices, boy, we need to listen to today. He wrote a book called The Gulag Archipelago, which he wrote when he was in a gulag during the Soviet tyranny, and he wrote it in his mind, wrote small pages of it, memorized it in his mind, and then smuggled it out. And this book talks about what we do to each other when we arrive at extreme positions. Does that sound relevant in any way? So this is one of the things he said about understanding whether or not people are good or bad. He says this, if only it were so simple, if only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and it were only necessary to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the line, listen now, but the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being, and who is willing to destroy a piece of its own heart. As we've said many times before, I want God to judge evil, but only evil that's a little more evil than my evil. I want it to start right here and take out the rest of y'all. Okay, because I feel better than you guys. See how that works? And when we think of good and evil like that, we're wrong. It's in all of us. And this is the problem about progress and building. Because when we go forward and we understand that within every person is good and evil, we need to understand within every country there is good and evil. Within every business, within every church, within every family, within every school, there is capacity for both. And so what we're going to see that's missing in this first great human endeavor is morality, is a God equation, and is the virtue that is going to keep the thing from not becoming a tyranny. And so God is going to come and he is going to oppose it. You see, we have to decide how we're going to respond in the midst of this. Now watch this. Look what God does. This is so profound. And the Lord came down. Now I love this because what it literally says in the Hebrew is the Lord stooped down. So the Lord looked at their project. Oh, look at the tower they did. Hey, Gabriel, look at this. They're doing a tower. It's so cute. So, and they think this is something. And they forgot, I gave them the insight. I put the mortar in the ground. I'm the person who gave them the wisdom, and they're not acknowledging me. And they're not only not acknowledging me as the one who's the source, they're not acknowledging me as the source of goodness that they should be implementing. They're doing something. Listen now, they're doing something, but they have no idea why they're doing it. And so they're in the midst of this project, but they don't see the meaning in the project. That makes it incredibly dangerous. On top of that, God would have said, cute little tower, have you seen my mountain? Because I did that, okay? So don't be overly impressed because I did this. And so whenever we progress, whenever we're advancing, whenever we're creating, and we should, passionately, wholeheartedly, because that honors God and creates God, but we don't have humility, it becomes a very, very dangerous thing. So look again, the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. Okay, so this is a human story. At first it looks like, boy, we're all together, same page, working for something. We're building good stuff. We're going to do it. We're going to make a name for ourselves. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you put on the boardroom wall as motivational speak, right? God says, yeah, you're missing something super important. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they have one language. And this, look at this, is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing they were supposed to do will now be impossible for them. And so you're thinking, God's saying, where to go? He's not. He's saying, they've got incredible potential. It's as if God were saying, listen, when I made them and put my image in them, I did a really good job. I made something special. I made something powerful. And they can create powerful, good, wonderful things. But understand, that is a neutral force until you add good or evil to it. Because we can create things powerfully, amazingly, that could actually become incredibly dangerous. Everybody all is worked up about AI right now. Artificial intelligence, is it going to be Skynet? Are they going to take over and get the drones and kill us all or something like that? What actually scares me about AI is what wicked men can do with it. Because that's the danger. That's the danger. So here's the deal. We invent things, and they can be a force for good or they can be a force for evil. So back originally, there was the Stone Age, and then they did the Copper Age, and then they did the Bronze Age, and they came up with this Iron Age thing. Why is that a big deal? Because that's when we got really good at making swords and spears and arrows. And in the history of humanity, that's when war exploded. That's when it happened. And then we go through different times in history, and later on, a lot of years later, we invented this thing called gunpowder, which is a powerful force that can be used safely to do some really good stuff, to blow things up so we can make trains and planes and roads and all that kind of stuff like that. What we tend to do with it is do things like cannons and guns. And when we got really good at gunpowder, war exploded. Huge armies moved in vast and horrible ways. And of course, we could talk about nuclear capacity, and there's incredible power to do good stuff through nuclear, and yet we're all terrified of it because we don't know we can be trusted with something like that. And then, of course, we talk about AI. We can talk about things like the printing press. Printing press, what a great thing. So much good came. We can all read, and we got literature and advanced science and scientific revolution and all that, the Enlightenment. Wow, yay, printing press. But we also propagated ideas that were dark and horrible and immoral, and we spread them all over. The internet, good or bad? Well, yeah. We're connected. We're all speaking the same language. We get a lot done. But what would we do without email? We'd probably be a lot happier, actually. We had to wait to talk to each other before sending that email. My fresh thoughts, hot off the presses, send. No. Have you ever done that? But what else do we get with the internet, okay? We get overwork. We get pornography, we get human trafficking, we get the advancement of crime at another level of sophistication that staggers the imagination. See, the spirit of Cain, when it's building stuff to advance my name, to increase my reputation for my purposes, it is a dangerous, deadly thing. We just look at the history of history. You know who was super efficient, who built really good roads, had a pretty vibrant economy, and really turned a country around? The Nazis. They just did. People elected them because they were so pleased in what they did. And then, of course, it became something else because this incredible project was missing something. It was missing God, and it was missing moral virtue. Okay? And so when we make progress and we have people, we have leaders who do not have that it matters. This is why character matters in our leaders. Because even if a leader's coming and doing some good, positive things going forward, but they're a person of low character, eventually the more good they do, the more power they will get. And if they're not the kind of person who will use that for the glory of God and the common good of humanity, that is a terrifying prospect. And so we got to ask some deep questions about our whole understanding of progress and what is missing. Because God has called us to use all this human capacity of this inventing, this curing, this healing, this singing, this writing, this beautiful expression of everything that brings glory to God through the expression of humanity, the arts, the sciences. It's gorgeous. But when it's not met with things like justice and truth and love and humility and service and sacrifice and a desire to share with the common good, it becomes a very scary thing. Nothing becomes impossible, and that is frightening without morality. Now, just for a second, let's just take a step back and bring this home a little bit, okay? Because it would be easy for us to take this concept coming out of the Tower of Babel and say, okay, I get it. He's talking about big global things and we got to do good and bad. But what about your life? So take it back to you. What does this mean to you? Well, what it means to you is that you have been created in the image of God. What that means is that there's capacity in you. Not the same capacity as almost anyone else who's ever lived, but capacity. You are set in a time, in a place, in a location that is unique in all of human history. And you've been given something that no one else has been given. And you've been given a kind of intelligence, a kind of talent, a kind of giftedness, a kind of passion. And you have a choice. There's one of three things you can do with this. The first thing you can do and say, too risky, I'm not going to do anything with it. What if I fail? What if I get embarrassed? What if I get hurt? What if I die? What if I do it all wrong? What if I make things worse? Okay, it would just be better if I just shrunk back and just did the bare minimum to kind of survive, maybe take care of myself, get a little help, but I can't. I got to just stay there. Jesus actually told a story about that. He said there was this guy, a master in the role of God in the parable, and he went on a trip and he gave each one of his servants a different amount of responsibility, a different amount of wealth to manage according to their ability. Well, the one who just got a little said to himself, boy, this is too risky, and I'm not sure this is a good master. I'm not sure it's safe. So he took his and he buried his talent. He played it safe. And when he came back, he said to the master, here's what you give me, just what you gave me. I didn't add to it. I was scared to death. I didn't do a thing. And you know what the master's response was? He said, you wicked and lazy servant. To not use what you are called and what you've been given, the scribes tells us is wicked and lazy. That you were put in a place to do some good, to add to something, to make others good. It's actually the key to making yourself good. Helping others is the best way to help yourself. It makes you something more significant. And so for you to just say, I'm out, that's missing the point. Now the second thing you can do, you say, okay, yeah, I got skills. I got mad skills. I'm going to get some. I'm going to use what I have for me. I'm going to get a name, I'm going to get a reputation, I'm going to get some bank, okay, some bling. How cool am I? I'm going to bing and blank. I'm so cool. Anyway, so you're going to get your stuff, right? And you're going to get yourself in a position where you're going to be in control and you protect yourself. And you're going to say, if I can just get enough where I feel safe and I feel significant, I'll be happy. Those people are not happy. One of the most tragic things in the human story is the person who sacrifices all that really matters to get things that don't matter to realize that they didn't want it after all. They got what they think they want. They got the position, got the fame, got the thing. It's not enough. It's not satisfying. It is so empty. Because we think the security and the stuff will make us happy. What we are actually looking for, listen now, church, is meaning. Meaning is what you're hungry for. That what I'm doing is significant. It matters. In this world, I am making a difference. And I'm part of something bigger than myself. Listen now, when you find meaning, happiness sneaks up on you. Okay, but when you're forever pining away for what you have, protecting what you have, wishing for something you don't have, you're just setting yourself up for misery. So that's the second thing you do. The third thing you can do is you can say, okay, God, you have given me time, talent, treasures. You have given me the ability to live in this life. You've put me in a situation, a job, a family. How am I supposed to live? How am I supposed to bring you glory? How am I supposed to understand your goodness, embody your goodness, and bring it to the situation that I'm in? How am I supposed to live in this time, in this way that is meaningful? What does that mean for me as a parent, or an employer, or an employee, or a teacher, or whatever it is? And when you start seeing, listen now, the meaning behind what you do, again, happiness, significance catch up on you. You become a more life-giving person. People seek you out. You become a more significant person. I saw this in real time years ago with a young guy I was mentoring. It was actually in our last church we started up north. And we were there. I was meeting with this guy. He was a foreman. We started meeting. He was just talking about how miserable his job was. So much pressure, so hard. No one understands. No one appreciates him. These other guys are just blank, blank, blanks. And, he didn't say blank, blank, blank. He said other words. But he said those things. And he said, they just don't get it. Okay? And so we started reading a book about virtue and work and vocation, about finding meaning in work. And I remember when we started meeting, when he started getting it, he said, something happened this week. It's like blowing my mind. I said, what happened? He said, well, this guy came in. That guy I've been telling you about? He's the guy HR won't let me fire. Okay? And so he just came in, he was doing his thing again. I said, whatever. And before I walked to the door, I said, how are you doing? And he said, and I did not mean it. He said, but he told me. He said, my wife, and we're looking like a divorce and finance and this and that. And he sat in my office and spoke for another 20 minutes about what was going on. And I looked at him, I listened, and I prayed for him, not with him, but for him, just as he was talking. And I realized this in a moment. And I said at the end, what can I do to help? He said, nothing. They just helped talking about it. And he just left. And then he realized that I had like 4 of those conversations this week. And I didn't realize I was having those conversations regularly. People were like coming in and talking to me. And then I realized there was this other thing on the line where there were these 2 guys on the line, and they hated each other since high school. And I had to mediate a conflict with them. And if I hadn't done that, they would have gone bad, and they would have beat each other, and it would have been terrible. But I fixed that, and it worked better. And he said, and the other thing that just occurred to me reading this book, he said, there are 120 or so people who report to me. He said, that's 120 families. He said, so when I do my job well and set them up and help them, those families are provided for. When we create a good product at a fair price, we're actually putting that in the market, and there's a whole industry. I used to say, all we do is just do these mechanical parts. It doesn't really matter. It's just stuff. But I understand that if they don't have these, they can't build that, and then that won't happen, and they're digging machines, and so that can't happen. He says, we're part of a whole big thing. He says, so if I do my job well, then I'm helping the people I'm with. I'm making families better. We're making something that this world's got to have. He said, all of a sudden, I'm like going to work with a whole different perspective. And what he did was he found the meaning, the goodness of God. You say, what do you mean the goodness of God? Well, he was faithful. He was hardworking. He was consistent. He was temperate. He was compassionate. He was empathetic. That is all rooted in the nature and care of God. When you are that embodied, incarnate in your time and place, that is meaningful. Now, that doesn't matter if you make widgets or you're feeding orphans. And one of the things he said to me in those meetings, he said, what I do is just as important as what you do. I said, yes, probably more important. I'm pretty isolated from real stuff. And it became this incredible opportunity for meaning. And this is the message of the Tower of Babel. Because listen, if you're living in the spirit of Cain, okay, and you are an ambitious, talented person, you're dangerous. You're building idols and altars and towers to your name and your fame for you. You are going over people. You are using people. And listen, the more talented you are and the less moral you are, the more dangerous you are. Okay? Listen, talent is cheap. Character is everything. And when you understand that lesson, you understand what God's response was to this. Now watch what God does. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language. We're going to break this up. And by the way, he literally confused their language. But whenever you have a group of people that are doing something to establish their name, listen, this is the deal. At first, it's let's establish our name. But at some point, the most powerful person says, well, let's establish my name. Your name's not as important. Well, my name's pretty important. And then all of a sudden, you're not communicating, you're believing bad things, and you're separated. So this is the natural result of the spirit of Cain. Division, discord, brokenness, chaos. And so this is what happens. So that they may not understand one another's speech, and that's exactly what happens with the spirit of Cain. Take most political debates, right? Everybody's speaking English, but they're not speaking the same language. They don't mean the same thing by the same words that the other side makes. And they have broken the camp in, oh, well, you're the bad people, we're the good people. We might do some bad things, but we're not bad. You're bad. You may do some good things, but you're not good. You're bad. I've got you categorized. That is so easy, such a relief. Whew. I don't have to do any deep thinking about the nuances. I don't have to capitulate to any of your points. I don't have to compromise. I don't have to be an adult. I just call you a name and feel vindicated and justified by that. That is the spirit of Cain. They're not speaking the same language. And we live in a world, my goodness, we're not speaking the same language. So that they may not understand one another's speech, so the Lord dispensed them from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building. And so the separation made more tribes, more separation, and it was both a tragedy, because our ultimate goal is unity, and the ultimate destiny of humanity is unity, but it also was a blessing, because here's the deal. They needed to disperse, because if they had been all together and accomplished these great things, they would have been great but evil things, and eventually they would have destroyed themselves. And remember, the whole story of the Bible goes back, this is back to Genesis, about that promise. The promise to the woman was that from your seed, remember the word seed is a huge concept in the book of Genesis, from your seed, from your offspring, is going to come one who's going to oppose the seed of the serpent. And eventually that one who's going to come is going to crush the head of the serpent, going to crush the spirit of Cain, to crush evil. That one who fulfilled the promise to the woman all the way in Genesis is Jesus. We're going to talk about that a lot at Christmas, okay? Crushes the head. But the rest of the story of the Bible is how God kept us alive long enough for Jesus to come. And so the dispersing of the Tower of Babel is God saying, I want them to make progress, but not for evil. And if I don't upset this, if I don't undo this, this is one of the reasons I think God allows some chaos in our world, a lot of chaos in our world. Because we think if we could just get united, if we could just get together, we could speak the same language, we're all basically good, we'd all love each other and figure it out. Would we? Probably not. If any of the history of history is any evidence, the opposite is true. And so God is working for a bigger goal. This, by the way, should get you super excited about heaven. You say, why is that? Well, because we will speak the same language. We will have the same heart. We will have the same mind. And all of human potentiality can flourish. Heaven is not going to be a stagnant place where everything is done and we know everything. Boring. Heaven is going to be a place of discovery and learning and science. And we're going to, I wonder if we get to fly to Nebula. I wonder if we get to invent rocket ships. I don't know. But it's going to be a place where all that makes human beings come alive, the art, the literature, the music that are going to be there fully realized without any of the encumbrance of sin, should just, oh man, that's home. That's what we were created for, and we will be one. So when you understand the implications of this story to all that we are part of the human story, all that is relevant in our culture, how we should live in this culture, and how I should go to work tomorrow morning, we see this little strange, weird story all of a sudden becoming super important and very, very welcoming, important. So the Lord dispensed them from the city. He goes on. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the earth, and from there the Lord dispensed the people over the face of the earth. You see, what's desperately needed is for us to make a deep commitment to living our full humanity, to bring the progress, the innovation, the invention, the beauty, the art, the aesthetic, and just finding all of that, but finding it rooted in the nature and character of God and the goodness of God, in the moral virtue that is grounded in the nature and character of God as revealed in Jesus Christ. When these two meet things together in a person, in a culture, in a church, in a family, it becomes amazing. This, by the way, is why we're starting a school. Now, we have many great schools, we have many great teachers who embody this. I see you teachers. We have so many incredible public school teachers, private school teachers in our community that bring moral virtue, bring the God equation in so many creative ways to what they teach, and by who they are. It's an incredible thing. At Venture Academy, we're going to double down on that. We're going to add to the educational excellence in this community by saying that we're going to teach kids core competencies. We're going to teach them how to read and to write and how to think and how to problem solve. We're going to teach emotional intelligence. We're going to give them incredible tools to be competent people. We're going to teach resilience and failing forward. And we're going to call people to be the best versions of their created self. It's a high calling, but we're going to do it within a context of a God understanding that there is a God who created you with a purpose, and he defines what is right and wrong, and you are meant to be a person of character. So you have a competent person who is a moral person. You have a person who has essential skills in this world desperately needs, who also has a value of humanity and an understanding of their place and God's place and the other place of people in the world. At Venture Academy, we're saying we're preparing a world, we're empowering leaders, innovators, and designers to love Jesus Christ in such a way that they are ready for a world we can't imagine. Because what we understand is the world is changing so fast that the kindergartens right now are going to be doing jobs that don't exist right now. They're going to be doing things we can't imagine. So they're going to need incredible core competencies. They're going to need moral virtue because they're going to be called leaders. It changes education from something I have to do or maybe something I got to do to get a job someday so I can live to preparing for the mission, the vocation, the thing you were created to do. It is a vision of education that is missional, that is saying you were created to do something important in the world, and you're going to spend the next 12 years preparing for that. We're going to get you out in the real world in internships and innovation labs so you can learn how to do real stuff, because this world needs amazing Christian people who will live out their humanity in the most wonderful places that we can redeem the arts and sciences and medicine and all the different disciplines. The church, for goodness sakes, all needs to be renovated. And so education is a big part of the heart of that. Someone who spoke about this deeply was C.S. Lewis. Super important book. We all should read it. It's a hard book. You should read hard books. Let me just say that. You say, I don't know. If you can't read a hard book, listen to it on audio tape. It will be good for you. Challenge yourself to do hard things. So if you haven't read The Abolition of Man, particularly if you're in education, read that book. It'll be hard, it'll be worth it. But C.S. Lewis basically said this in The Abolition of Man. He's saying, in his age, so this is like 60 plus years ago now, in this world, where in the world, he said, the educational model is to teach people technical understanding, particularly of literature, that was his area of expertise, without teaching them any moral virtue. So he'd say things like, we tell people that things like honor is passé and foolish and silly, and then we wonder why we have traitors. We tell people that there is no such thing as truth, and we're surprised that they tell lies. We tell people that love is just a fabrication of your hormones, and then we understand why people don't treat each other with dignity and respect. He says we're making what he called men without chests. But this is one of the quotes that captures up the essence of the book. He says this: education without values, as useful as it seems, rather to make a man more a clever devil. So the whole idea of teaching competence without morals is dangerous, is undoing. To teach people to do powerful things without teaching them to be good and do good with those things puts in the hands powerful things into people's hands that is just flat dangerous. And so there's some steps I want to challenge you with, next steps. First next step is this: start at home, gang. Start at home. So you're going to come to yourself and you're going to say, okay, how do I look at my humanity? One thing you need to quit wasting time is telling yourself how horrible you are, telling yourself you can't do anything, beating yourself up, shaming yourself. Just let that go. God said, I created you in my image, and when I made you, you are very good. Within you is the potential to do something important and meaningful in your time and space. You have a calling, you have a vocation, you have the ability to care for yourself and to care for others and make this world a better place. That is in you, okay? And when you understand that and you get your head straight on that, you say, okay, I'm not going to waste any time hiding that, playing it safe. I'm going to take a risk. Listen, there's three kinds of people in the world. There's people who risk it and do it. We all want to be that, fun, right? There's other people who risk it and don't do it, okay? But they learn, they resolve. There's a third group that just stands on the sideline and criticizes the other two. Don't be the third dude, okay? I would rather go down swinging than never get up to bat. I'd rather try and it not work out than never try. Because here's the deal, it might work out, how cool would that be? And so I'm going to be a person who does something great, but I'm not going to do it for myself. I'm going to do it with an eye for God. I'm going to say, God, what is this? What does it mean? How does it make it meaningful? And how does it lead to human flourishing? How can it be part of making something better? And this is our heart. This is our perspective. And we reject the spirit of Cain that says, I shouldn't have to. It's too hard. Other people don't have to. I shouldn't be entitled. We reject all that and just say, even if you got some points in there, that is going to just kill you and degrade your humanity. So you're going to start with yourself. And then, you know what we need to do? We need to start praying. We need to start praying for people who in our society have power because our society is pretty amazing. We have penicillin, suspension bridges, and art that will make you weep. Concerts of thousands of people that are existential in the experience. That is all powerful human innovation, and there's so much good. And so if there's people who have that, you need to pray for that. So you need to be praying for our president, even if you didn't vote for him. You're praying for our senators, the one you voted for and the one you didn't, because that's kind of where we are at Wisconsin, right? Okay? We're going to pray for our congressmen. We're going to pray for our city officials. We're going to pray that they love good, they love God. We're going to pray, that they do good with the power that they have. We're going to pray for, are you angry at your boss? Have you prayed for your boss? Because if your boss does a good job, all the people under them flourish. Pray for your boss. Say, I'm really angry at him. Pray for your enemies, if that's where you're at. But pray. Are you a boss? Do you pray for each one of your employees, even the one HR won't let you fire, even the one that annoys you, even the one that's seeking to undermine you? Are you praying for them? Pray for them. Work for their good. Pray for our teachers. You want to talk about hard job, thankless job, overly criticized in this environment? Pray for our teachers. Pray for our students. It's tough to be a student. It's tough to be coming of age right now. It's very complicated. It's really hard for them to find a place to stand. And so pray for them. Pray for our leaders in all the different capacities. Pray for, all the doctors, our foremen, our facility managers, all the people who have responsibility for themselves and for something that's important, that if it breaks, something else big breaks, and the people under them. Because that's the thing. You say, that's why I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to fail. I want to get hurt. Listen, if you're going to be a leader, you're going to get hurt. That's part of the job description. But you learn to be resilient. You learn to power through. You learn to do the good thing in the right way. Why? Because that's in the nature or character of God. And what you find when you embrace that attitude and that heart is not at first happiness. In fact, you might get unhappy for a while. But you find meaning. And when you find meaning, happiness sneaks up on you. And so that's what we're going to do. Let's pray. Father, so much here, so much power here. Your word, it cuts to marrow and bone and joint. Let it cut me. Let it cut us. Change our heart and our attitude. Forgive us for the times we embrace the spirit of Cain. We haven't even realized it. Forgive us the time we've used in our human potential for selfish towers and things that were about us. And help it just come back to be about you and for human flourishing in the best possible way. Teach us, Father, to walk differently, live differently, talk differently. And we pray, Father, for all those in authority, our president, our senators, our congressmen and women. We pray, Father God, for those who are our bosses, for those who lead our government, for those in police, for goodness sakes, you want to talk people under attack, for those firefighters, for those who respond, first responders, for all those different groups, for those who manage facilities and manage offices who are struggling right now. Help them see the meaning in the people, and the meaning in the purpose in what they're doing, a good product at a good price that's needed to make the whole thing work. Father, help us just to see that and embrace that with a different attitude of service and sacrifice. We thank you for the Lord Jesus, for you came in this way. You came not to be served, but to serve. You who had all the power, all the capability, the ultimate human, you used it for your Father's glory and, my goodness, for human flourishing. Let us be like that. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.